A homeless woman, her face weathered by time and life's hardships, stares into the face of a billionaire at the coffee shop. Her words, a whisper of disbelief, shatter the silence. "You look just like my son. What happens next will leave you speechless." In a bustling city where the distance between wealth and poverty could not be more stark, lives two individuals whose worlds have never crossed. Until now. Nathaniel Grant, a billionaire businessman, spends his days consumed by deals and deadlines. Despite his outward success, something is missing in his life. He's driven, yes, but deep down, he's haunted by loneliness. His sleek, glass-fronted office high above the city serves as a fortress, and the people around him only seem to serve his ambition. No one understands the emptiness he feels, even as he walks through the halls of his luxury penthouse, void of warmth or connection. Then here is Lila, a woman who has seen too much of the world's cruelty. Her body is frail from years of hardship, and her face is worn from the weathering of life's storms. With matted hair and clothes that cling to her thin frame, she spends her days searching for shelter, scavenging for food, and surviving in the grim underbelly of the city. But what most people overlook is the unwavering strength in her eyes, the quiet resilience in the way she carries herself. Lila's past is a tangled web of pain and loss, but none of it has broken her spirit. One fateful day, their paths cross when Lila, trying to find warmth, steps into a coffee shop to escape the cold. There, by sheer coincidence, Nathaniel sits, engrossed in his phone, oblivious to the world around him. But then, as if drawn by some unseen force, Lila's gaze shifts, locking onto Nathaniel's face. Her heart skips a beat, her breath catches in her throat, and she stumbles forward, eyes wide with disbelief. Lila stands frozen, staring at the man who seems so familiar yet entirely out of place in her world. She is certain of it. This man, sitting at the table, has the same striking features, the same deep-set eyes as the son she lost many years ago. It's impossible. She's never seen him before in her life, but somehow her mind insists on this connection. Her hands tremble as she approaches him. The words leave her lips before she can stop them. "You look just like my son." Nathaniel, startled, looks up from his phone. His eyes meet Lila's, and in an instant, he's lost. The words sink into his mind like a jolt. He feels the weight of them, the strange tension in the air. The woman before him is no one of importance yet. To hear is something about her, the way her voice quivers, the sadness in her eyes. It's as if she knows him, or at least, someone who resembles him. He opens his mouth to speak, but nothing comes out. Lila's words echo in his ears long after she's left the shop. For the rest of the day, he's consumed by the encounter, his mind racing to understand what just happened. What did she mean by that? Was it a mere coincidence? Or was there some deeper connection between them that neither of them could yet comprehend? Little does he know. This chance meeting will unravel a story that neither he nor Lila could ever have imagined. The following days are a blur for Nathaniel. That chance encounter with Lila lingers in his mind, occupying his thoughts in ways he can't explain. He finds himself constantly replaying her words in his head. "You look just like my son." The idea of a lost son is foreign to him. He's had everything: money, power, success, but nothing has ever filled the emptiness inside. Yet, in Lila's eyes, he sees a yearning that mirrors his own. Something about her vulnerability and deep sadness stirs something within him. Could she be speaking the truth? Could she be someone from his past, a part of a life he's forgotten? Unable to shake the mystery, Nathaniel hires a private investigator to look into Lila's past, hoping to uncover something that might explain the strange connection he feels. Meanwhile, Lila's life continues in the shadows, a never-ending cycle of struggle. She's been on the streets for years, her heart hardened by countless losses, but her memories, especially of her son, are never far from her mind. Every day she battles her grief, but the haunting image of Nathaniel's face keeps resurfacing. Could it be? Could he truly be the son she lost so long ago? As Nathaniel digs deeper into Lila's past, he uncovers shocking information that takes him down an unexpected path. He learns that Lila had a son who was adopted by a wealthy family, and that son disappeared under mysterious circumstances. The timing of the disappearance matches exactly with the year Nathaniel was born. The evidence is startling. and a wave of disbelief washes over him. Could he, Nathaniel Grant, be the very son Lila is searching for? Driven by a mix of curiosity and the growing sense that something fateful is unfolding, Nathaniel arranges a meeting with Lila. The encounter is filled with tension as they sit across from each other, neither fully understanding the gravity of the situation. Lila's eyes are filled with a mix of hope and fear, while Nathaniel is caught between disbelief and a deep, unexplainable pull toward this woman. As they talk, pieces of the puzzle begin to fall into place, but neither is ready for the truth that will soon emerge and that will change both of their lives forever. The days that follow are filled with a heightened sense of anticipation for both Nathaniel and Lila. Nathaniel finds himself drawn to Lila in ways he doesn't understand. His thoughts often where son, the raw pain etched on her face as she reminisced about a time long past. Lila, too, is andering to their last meeting. He recalls the vulnerability in her voice when she spoke about unable to shake the image of Nathaniel's face, something about it reminding her of her son. It's impossible to deny the connection she feels, despite the years of uncertainty. Meanwhile, Nathaniel's investigation brings more unsettling truths to light. There are documents that point to a child being adopted by a wealthy family, but the trail stops there. He questions the veracity of the information and begins to wonder if it's all just a series of coincidences. However, deep down, something pulls at him, urging him to keep going. The more he learns, the more he feels like here is something important here, something that might change everything he knows about his own life. Lila, for her part, spends her days on the streets, but the hope that had once seemed so far-fetched now begins to bloom. Every time she closes her eyes, she can still see her son's face. She clings to the idea that Nathaniel might indeed be the son she lost. In her heart, she knows that fate works in mysterious ways, but with each passing day, doubt creeps in. Could it really be him, or is this just a wild fantasy fueled by the desperation of a woman who has lost everything? As the days progress, Nathaniel's obsession with the truth grows. He decides to meet with a private investigator, someone who specializes in uncovering long-lost connections. The investigator, a grizzled man named Frank, sifts through old records and birth certificates, tracing what little is known about Lila's son. The more Frank digs, the more he uncovers, revealing a striking pattern that leads them both to a mysterious adoption agency from decades ago. Nathaniel feels a knot tighten in his stomach as the pieces start to fit together. Everything he's found points to a possibility he's not ready to accept, but he can't ignore the mounting evidence. Lila, however, continues her daily routines, caught between a flicker of hope and the harsh reality of her situation. One afternoon, she stumbles upon a weathered old photograph in a secondhand store, a glimpse of a smiling young boy holding a balloon at a carnival. She doesn't know why, but something about the photo captures her attention. She buys it on impulse, and the photograph becomes her secreter talisman of hope. At night, she spends hours staring at the image, imagining that the boy in the picture is indeed the son she has mourned for so long. Every tear she sheds, every thought she has, draws her closer to the belief that her past is not as distant as it seems. Meanwhile, Nathaniel's world begins to shift. As he uncovers more about the child in the adoption papers, a name Luke keeps resurfacing. It's a name he's heard before, from Lila's tearful recollections. Slowly, the truth inches closer, and with each passing moment, Nathaniel's heart races. Could this be the truth he's been searching for all along? Or is it just another cruel twist of fate? The questions grow louder, and he knows he's running out of time. The day of reckoning arrives unexpectedly. Nathaniel has decided to confront Lila about the photograph, but he has no idea how to approach the subject. He stands outside her apartment, staring at the door, his heart pounding in his chest. He hesitates, feeling the weight of his emotions pulling him in different directions. This conversation will change everything. He takes a deep breath and knocks. Lila answers, and as soon as she sees him, something shifts in her expression. Here is recognition in her eyes. Something deeper than just familiarity. It's a spark, an almost unexplainable connection. The tension in the air is palpable as Nathaniel steps inside, unsure of what to say. He places the photograph gently in her hands. Lila's fingers tremble as she lifts the picture to her eyes. The image of the young boy, laughing under the carnival lights, seems to pull her into a memory she can barely reach. Her breath catches as she stares at the photograph. For a moment, she's silent, the weight of her own disbelief weighing down on her. Her voice cracks as she speaks. "I thought about him every day. Is this a sign?" Nathaniel watches her closely, his heart aching with empathy. He knows the significance of the moment, the raw emotion in her eyes, the deep longing that has been gnawing at her for years. The truth is finally within their grasp, and yet, it feels so fragile. His voice trembles as he speaks. "Lila, I think this is Luke, your son." The silence that follows is deafening. The room seems to hold its breath as Lila clutches the photo tightly. Her face a mixture of hope, disbelief, and an overwhelming surge of emotions. She stumbles back a few steps, her legs giving way as the gravity of Nathaniel's words hits her. She cannot believe it. After all these years, could this be real? Nathaniel's eyes soften, his concern for her well-being clear. He reaches out to steady her, but Lila pulls away slightly, as if unsure of how to process everything at once. "This can't be real," she whispers. "I've dreamed of this day, but this feels impossible." Nathaniel nods solemnly, understanding her pain. "I never wanted to be the bearer of bad news, but I had to tell you. It's too important not to. Your son, he might be alive. He might have been. Luke." Lila's world is spinning, and she can hardly stand still. She takes slow, deliberate steps away from Nathaniel, retreating to the corner of her small apartment. The photograph slips from her hands, but she doesn't notice. Her mind is racing, replaying memories that had long since faded into the background of her life. Her son, Luke, the boy she had lost, the boy she had fought for. She presses her hand to her mouth, holding back the flood of tears that threatens to overtake her. Nathaniel watches her carefully, unsure of how to continue. This is uncharted territory for both of them. He wants to comfort her, but he can sense that she needs to process this revelation on her own. For what feels like an eternity, Lila is silent. Her body trembles as the weight of the years without her son begins to crush her. She thinks of the places they used to go, the laughter they shared, and the way her heart had been shattered when he was taken from her. She had always held on to the belief that there was a reason, something she couldn't explain, but it was there, lingering beneath the surface. She wasn't crazy for hoping, for wondering if there was more to the story. As if guided by an unseen force, she steps back toward Nathaniel, her eyes filled with both pain and longing. She speaks, her voice quiet but steady. "You are saying he's alive, after all this time?" Nathaniel nods, unable to speak for a moment. His throat tightens as he sees the raw emotion on her face. He had never imagined he'd be the one to deliver this kind of news. And yet, here they are. Lila's eyes search his face, looking for something, an explanation, a sign, anything that could confirm the truth of his words. "How do you know this?" she asks, her voice trembling with uncertainty. Nathaniel takes a deep breath, collecting his thoughts before answering. I found out from someone who worked with your son when he was younger. The person who knew him. They recognized something about the photo I showed them. They said it was him, Lila. Your son." Her breath hitches. Her heart races. Could it really be true? Could Luke be out there, somewhere, waiting for her? Lila closes her eyes for a moment, gathering the strength she never knew she had. The hope she had buried for years now comes rushing to the surface, threatening to overwhelm her. She presses her palms to her face, trying to hold back the emotions she thought had long been lost. "I don't know if I can take this," she whispers. Nathaniel steps closer to her, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. He doesn't push, but his presence is comforting in a way she hasn't experienced in years. He understands her grief, her fear, and her hope. He knows that this moment could shatter her in a way nothing else could. "I am sorry," Nathaniel says softly. "I never meant to upset you. I couldn't let you go on without knowing." Lila turns to face him, her eyes still wet with unshed tears. But here is something new in her gaze now, determination. A flicker of the woman she used to be before life had torn her apart. "How do we find him?" she asks, her voice breaking through the fog of disbelief that has enveloped her. Nathaniel pauses, thinking. This is the moment where everything changes, where they both take a leap into the unknown. He doesn't know what's next, but he knows they have to move forward. They have to find Luke. He stands up straighter, a sense of purpose flooding his veins. "I'll help you," he says firmly. "We'll find him together." Lila nods, feeling a glimmer of hope that she hasn't allowed herself to feel in years. The journey ahead will be long and uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, she's not alone. With Nathaniel by her side, maybe, just maybe, she can bring her son home. The next few days pass in a blur of uncertainty and anticipation. Lila and Nathaniel work together to uncover any leads they can find about Luke, and with each passing day, the sense of urgency grows. Nathaniel uses his wealth and connections to track down any information, and Lila digs through old records, hoping for a breakthrough. The weight of the past hangs over them both as they search for answers. Lila's every waking moment is consumed by thoughts of Luke. She wonders what he's been through, how he's lived, and whether he still remembers her. The ache in her chest is constant, a reminder that time is slipping away, and every day without him feels like another loss. Nathaniel, on the other hand, finds himself increasingly invested in Lila's mission. He never expected this journey to impact him so deeply. His initial desire to help had stemmed from a sense of responsibility, but now it has grown into something much more personal. He has seen Lila's pain, her determination, and her capacity for love, and it's made him question the things that have always mattered to him. As they continue to dig into the past, a breakthrough finally comes. An anonymous tip-off leads them to a lead that could change everything. A woman who claims to have seen Luke not too long ago. With the new information in hand, Lila and Nathaniel prepare to take the next step. They don't know what they'll find, but they are no longer afraid. They have each other, and they have hope, the only things that matter now. The wind whips through the trees as Lila and Nathaniel arrive at the address they were given. The small, run-down house on the outskirts of town looks nothing like the grand mansions Nathaniel is accustomed to, but it's where they've been told to look. As they step out of the car, a sense of both dread and hope settles over them. This could be the moment they've been searching for, or it could be another dead end. Lila's heart pounds in her chest as she follows Nathaniel up the path to the door. She's been through so much already: loss, grief, rejection, and now the possibility of finding Luke feels like a cruel twist of fate. What if it's not him? What if the truth is something even more painful than she's prepared for? Nathaniel knocks on the door, his hand steady despite the tension in the air. A few moments later, the door opens, revealing an older woman with kind eyes but a guarded expression. "Yes?" she asks, her voice wary but not unwelcoming. Lila can barely bring herself to speak, but Nathaniel steps forward, introducing themselves. He explains that they're looking for a young man named Luke, Lila's son. The woman's eyes widen, and for a split second, Lila's heart stops beating. Has she finally found him? The woman hesitates for a moment before inviting them inside. As Lila crosses the threshold, she feels a strange sense of calm settle over her. The house may be humble, but it's filled with warmth, something Lila hasn't felt in years. She can't help but wonder what kind of life Luke has had since he was taken from her. They sit down together in the living room, and the woman, her name is Marissa, explains that she knows Luke, or at least she knows of him. He's been living in a nearby foster home for the last few years, ever since he was placed there after being found alone on the streets. Lila's breath catches in her throat. Is it really him? Is he alive? Marissa tells them that Luke's been through a lot, but he's a fighter. She doesn't have many details, but the small glimpses she's had of him tell her that Luke is strong, resilient, and capable of surviving anything life throws at him. And now, as she watches Lila's eyes fill with tears, she realizes that the time has come for a reunion. They get, the heavier her heart feels. When they finally arrive, Lila can hardly bring herself to step out of the car. Nathaniel notices her hesitation and places a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You are not alone in this," he says softly. Lila nods, swallowing the lump in her throat, and they walk toward the entrance of the foster home together. Marissa leads them inside, where they're greeted by a kind, middle-aged Lila barely notices the passage of time as she and Nathaniel follow Marissa to the foster home. Her mind is spinning, her thoughts tangled in the rush of emotions she's been holding on to for so long. She's almost afraid to believe it, to hope that Luke is just around the corner, the closer man who runs the facility. She leads them down a hallway lined with rooms, And with each step, Lila feels as though she's walking toward a dream or perhaps a nightmare. When they finally reach the room where Luke is supposed to be, Lila's hands begin to tremble. She's never imagined this moment. Not really. The hope of it has always seemed too distant, too impossible to grasp. But now, it's here. The door opens, and the moment Lila sees him there, sitting on the edge of the bed, looking out the window, she freezes. Time seems to stop. Luke is older than she remembers. He's taller now, his face sharper, more mature, but T here is something in his eyes that still speaks of the boy she once knew. His expression is unreadable at first as he turns to face them, but when his eyes meet Lila's, everything changes. Lila takes a tentative step forward, and Luke's eyes widen. His gaze shifts from her to Nathaniel, then back to Lila again, uncertainty clouding his features. He stands up slowly, as if he's unsure whether he should be afraid, or if he can trust what he's seeing. "Mom?" he whispers, his voice cracking with disbelief. Lila's breath hitches. The sound of that word, the word she had longed to hear, catches in her throat. Tears flood her eyes as she steps forward, arms outstretched. "Luke, it's really you," she says, her voice barely a whisper. For a moment, neither of them moves. The years of separation have created an invisible barrier, one that neither of them is sure how to cross. But then, something shifts. Luke takes a tentative step forward, and without another word, he collapses into her arms. Lila holds him tight, not caring about anything else. The world fades away as she wraps her arms around her son, feeling the weight of the years lift off her shoulders. It's not perfect, there are years to make up for, stories to be told, healing to debut in this moment. She has her son back. Nathaniel stands quietly by the door, watching them with a mixture of emotions. He's seen their bond form before his eyes, and though he feels a sense of relief for Lila, he also understands that T here is a long road ahead for all of them. But for now, in this moment, Lila and Luke are together again. The days following their reunion are filled with quiet joy and the heavy weight of unspoken words. Lila and Luke spend hours together talking, reminiscing, and slowly rediscovering the bond that had been stolen from them. There is so much to catch up on, so many things left unsaid, but they are both patient, willing to let the healing take its course. Nathaniel continues to play a quiet, supportive role in their lives. His presence, while always in the background, has become a constant that Lila can rely on. He helps with the logistics, finding a new place for Lila and Luke to live, helping her navigate the complexities of the legal system to ensure Luke's adoption is finalized. Through it all, Nathaniel remains a steady and unwavering friend, never pushing but always there when needed. As Lila and Luke settle into their new life, the changes become evident in their surroundings. The modest foster home is soon replaced with a small house in a quiet neighborhood. It isn't a mansion, but it's a home one where they can start over. Luke, who had spent so many years in survival mode, is now adjusting to the comforts of a stable life. Though it takes time, he's still wary of new experiences, still learning to trust in the stability that Lila is offering him. Yet, there is joy in the little things: Luke playing catch with Nathaniel in the backyard, Lila cooking dinner in the kitchen, their laughter echoing through the walls. It's not perfect, but it's a new beginning. One evening, as the sun sets and the warmth of the day fades, Lila and Luke sit together on the porch. The sound of crickets fills the air as Lila looks over at her son. "You know, when I lost you, I thought I'd never get you back," she says softly, her voice thick with emotion. Luke looks at her, his expression still a mixture of confusion and acceptance. "I didn't think I could be loved again, but now I think I can be." Lila smiles, a tear slipping down her cheek. "We'll always have each other. That's all that matters." As the weeks pass, the story of Lila and Luke's reunion spreads. People around town start to take notice of the new family that has emerged from the ashes of loss. Nathaniel, though he's kept his distance from the spotlight, is proud of what they've accomplished. He knows that his role in this story, while subtle, has been pivotal. One afternoon, as Lila and Luke are settling into a routine, Nathaniel approaches her with a surprising offer. "I've been thinking," he begins, his voice casual but sincere. "I have the means to help more than just you and Luke. I Here is an organization I am passionate about, one that helps children in need of homes, children who have been through what Luke has. I'd like you to be a part of it." Lila is taken aback, unsure of what to say at first. The idea of helping others when she's only just begun to rebuild her own life seems daunting, but T here is a spark in her eyes. "I'd love to. If it means helping children like Luke, I am in." Nathaniel smiles, his eyes shining with approval. "I knew you'd feel that way." Together, Lila and Nathaniel begin to work toward creating a foundation for children in foster care that offers them not just a roof over their heads, but a place where they can feel loved and supported. The impact of their work is far-reaching, and soon, the small foundation grows into something that can help hundreds of children who feel just as lost and alone as Luke once did. The final step of this journey takes place on a sunny afternoon, when Lila, Luke, and Nathaniel are all gathered for a community event celebrating the foundation's success. The people they've helped, the children they've supported, all stand together in the sunlight, beaming with pride. Lila looks around at the faces in the crowd, faces that are no longer strangers, but family, and she realizes that this is her new life, a life built on love, hope, and second chances. The house, now filled with laughter and joy, is a stark contrast to the lonely mansion it once was. Nathaniel's home, which had always seemed so empty, has transformed into a place of warmth and belonging. The walls that once held only silence now resonate with the sound of love and new memories being made. One evening, as the sun begins to set, Lila sits on the porch with Nathaniel, reflecting on how far they've come. Luke is inside, doing his homework, a rare moment of peace for the family. "You know," Lila says, her voice thoughtful, "I never imagined my life would turn out like this. I thought I'd lost everything, and then here you are, helping me, helping Luke. I don't think I'll ever be able to thank you enough." Nathaniel smiles softly, his eyes filled with understanding. "You've already thanked me. You've shown me that love and hope are more powerful than anything else."